All right, good morning, everyone. I am really excited to do our very next episode of Raising Your Real Estate IQ. As you guys know, I'm Courtney, and I'm a local realtor here in San Diego County, and I'm excited for our next guest. I think this is something that's going to open the minds of some of you, maybe frustrated with the market, and it's just always so nice to know about what options we have. So I've got Dawn Looney here with Dawn Looney Architecture, and I'm so grateful, Dawn, for you being on, so thank you so much. And what we're going to do is we're going to start out with what are the benefits of hiring an architect, and then we're going to jump into what are some of the actual costs for building, what are some tips for making the process of building even easier, and then one of the topics we're going to talk about at the very end, what are the most common surprises for homeowners when building. You know, I think people probably watch a little too much HGTV and think the process is just seamless and no problem, so we'll get a chance to hear a little bit about that. But let's start off with what are some of the benefits of hiring an architect?
Well, the architect is defined, really the definition of architect is master builder. And so a good architect's going to be able to not only design, to do his research, but also know how to put the building together. And so that is, I think, a real important aspect of who you hire. And it depends upon the scope of work and the type of project that one has. For my services, I provide full services. So I will meet with clients before they close escrow on a house or a piece of property. We will evaluate if that home or that piece of property suits their needs. Some people want 3 bedrooms, some people want 9 bedrooms, some people want 1 bedroom. And so that all goes into the design and the selection of a house or a selection of a piece of property.
Yeah, there's so much to consider when it comes to buying land, and it's so important to have your ducks in a row, because last thing you want to do is buy a piece of land with this grand plan and then come to find once you close, sorry, it's not going to work. So it's great to have a resource early, and that's part of the reason why I like doing, having conversations like this, is just to bring awareness to things that maybe people don't already realize. And also, I'm really excited about talking about building, because with the market the way it is right now, it's kind of frustrating that in some cases you could spend $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 and have a house that needs quite a lot of fixing up still. So maybe this new idea for some of us is going to be, what does building look like? Is it feasible for me? What goes into it? And so that's what we're going to touch on today in our talk. So great. So let's talk about the actual costs, because in a lot of people's minds that I've talked to, it's like buy the land, build the house. There you go. Those are the 2 costs, call it a day. And you and I had talked earlier about what does that look like. So I created something here to share, and maybe we can kind of touch on a few of those items to consider.
And again, it all depends. These costs are all dependent upon the size of the property and the size of the house and the scope of work.
Of course.
There's a term in the industry it's sticks and bricks. Sticks and bricks refer to the foundation system, the wall framing, and the roofing for the most part. There's no wiggle room on those prices. The cost of concrete is what it is. You can't negotiate the cost of concrete. You can't negotiate the cost of wood lumber. And we've seen just in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the cost of lumber going up 30%.
Wow.
So on some of my builders, I gave my clients estimates, 3-4 months ago. Those cost estimates have to be updated because lumber is now a commodity, and so it's always changing. And then I think a lot of things that people don't understand is it's the finishes that go into a house that determine the cost of the house. You can spend $200 on a sink, or you can spend $2,000 on a sink. the contractor is going to use a different plumbing contractor to install that $2,000 sink than the less expensive one because it needs more care, it needs more careful handling,
Mhm.
because you don't want to drop it. And so they're going to use different contractors for different aspects and for different finishes.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And, just kind of high level looking at this, I have a 1,500 square foot house in the first column and then a 2,000 square foot house in the second. You can kind of see how different that makes it. But ultimately, a quick takeaway, and this is obviously has a lot of assumptions, just like you were saying, what kind of finishes you put into the house, the architectural plans, how elaborate is the house going to be, how many revisions, who do you hire, all of this plays into things. But just looking at a brand new house for around 700,000, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're at, and if you can even purchase land for 200,000, that's an assumption in and of itself. But $700,000 in San Diego County, it's kind of crazy to say, that's not astronomically high, and for a brand new house, that might end up being an option for more of us than we realize. So, okay, let's chat real quick about just what goes into it. If you want to go kind of line by line and explain just real fast, the different items and kind of go from there.
One of the important things is to see if the building will support if the land will support the building.
Mm-hmm.
Many agencies now have a maximum lot coverage to where you can only build so much house on that piece of property. That's a term called floor area ratio or lot coverage. Um, the community of Rancho Santa Fe within the covenant recently passed the new guideline that states that no more than 20% of the property can be covered with
Wow.
of the house, the swimming pool, and a tennis court. So if you're going to invest $2 million into a piece of property in Rancho Santa Fe, and it's going to be a remodel, the first thing that you want someone to provide for you is an estimate of existing lot coverage and the potential lot coverage that you can have that's still available.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at a $2 to $3 million property and you're going to make improvements of another $2 to $3 million, you want to make sure that question's asked before you close escrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the key things to do. But coming back to your chart, building costs, again, those can fluctuate. What we have on this chart is for an average home. It will have average finishes. Um, there are costs right now that are double that in some homes within the county. So it's the finishes and it's the size. School fees, those are checks paid directly to the school district. Um, those fluctuate with every year. Permit fees, those fluctuate. For a brand new home, let's say in the 8,000 square foot area, you're probably going to end up paying $35,000 to $45,000 in permit fees. And then if it has a guest house, there's additional fees on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Architectural plans, those fees, again, those vary depending upon the scope of work, the land that the home is being built on, and also the services that the architect provides.
Mm-hmm.
Some architects will provide what they call a base set of drawings or a permit plan. It's just enough information to purchase a building permit. Full service architect will provide landscaping, interior design, permit processing. They will draw all the interior walls, dealing with cabinet design, lighting design, and also outdoor terraces and swimming pools. So the architect fees can be all over the board depending upon what you have that architect do for you. Landscaping costs have probably doubled in the last 3 years. The cost of the plants, the cost of the labor, and the restrictions and guidelines that the county has now put on us have added significant labor cost and design cost before a permit can be issued. So that's just kind of a nutshell of what some
Yep.
of these entail.
Yep. Obviously, we always want to have a little buffer in there of some sort. There's things like, you know, do you need to get the actual utilities to the lot? How much does that cost? And I've helped some clients before researching, and there's been like, okay, if you decide to build on this lot, then you have to take all the above ground power lines and put them below ground for 500 yards of this neighborhood. That's just what you have to do. Well, the cost of that is astronomical. So it's not always what you think. And $15,000 wouldn't have covered the cost in that scenario, but, you know, buffer for those types of things. But this is just a helpful tool to know not specifically what you will see, but just in a general ballpark of what's out there.
And that's another reason to hire an architect, is because they're able to anticipate the costs. And I've looked at many properties where people are just so excited about buying this property. And then I said, well, it's a great price. And there's a reason there's a piece of property for a great price, because oftentimes that property won't perk for a septic system, or just as you mentioned, sometimes it's going to cost $65,000 to get utilities up to that piece of property. And sometimes it's solid rock. And so you're going to have to build in a large line item for grading. So that's a good architect will be able to forecast some of those things and do the research before you close escrow.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now we hear all the things that could come up and, you know, why it's so important, but what are some tips that make building a home even easier? You've seen probably the good, the bad, and the ugly of the process, depending on how people, operate themselves or the people that they've hired. What are some tips that could make it easier?
Probably a tip that's seldom mentioned is, if I'm doing a home for a couple, they need to be on the same page. There's been clients where I'll get a call from the wife, and then I get a call from the husband, and they're asking for two different things.
Yes.
It makes it hard for me because I've got to satisfy both requirements, and there has to be compromise. Going into any type of building project, you have to realize that there's give and take. Know your budget. So if you have $500,000 that you want to spend, take 10% out of that and use that as your budget. That'll make it a lot easier, because you're going to find a new product. You're going to, when the project is under construction, especially in the framing stage, oh, let's do this. Well, it's not in the framing plan or in the building plan, so the first question is, what is it going to cost? So if you have that 10% set aside, it's a lot easier to swallow for the duration of the project. One of the other things, too, that's easier is know how long you're going to be in a house. If you're going to be in a house 3 to 5 years, don't make it your house. Keep the finishes generic to where you can turn it over quickly and still maximize your profit.
Yeah.
If you're in a home 8, 9 years or longer, then go the extra mile and put those finishes in that you want. One of the other things is just realize it takes a long time. The permit process that used to take 6 to 8 weeks is now taking 4 to 6 months. Nothing can be done quickly since the COVID. So I think going in with the right attitude is really helpful, and just be mindful that things change. If you're on a remodel project, the first week you're going to discover all the decayed wood, the bad plumbing, the bad electrical, and so if that's not accommodated for, your cost can increase 30% just in those. So you have to have an open mind. If you have a fixed fee or fixed budget, then plan very simply. And then you can always add to it, but initially you want your plan to be very, very simple and very cost effective. Those are some of the tips.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely helpful. Okay, and the last question we're going to touch on real quick, and this one I'm excited to hear about. What would you say, and maybe you've already touched on some of these, but what would you say the most common surprises for homeowners have been when building, like, you know, your own personal experience?
Oh, is that what it looks like? Um, and so I don't like those, and I don't get them very often. But the key is to make sure that the owner, my client, understands what they're getting.
Mhm.
So we take extra effort to make sure that we do the renderings to show people what that kitchen is really going to look like. I think another major surprise is the cost and the time.
Mhm.
It always takes longer than what we think it is. And so um, when someone asks me at the very beginning stages of a project, well, Don, how long do you think it's going to take? And I'll give them an answer that they don't like because they had, you know, a third of that budgeted in their thinking. But it takes longer and it takes more money.
Mhm.
But I think one of the other good surprises is if you select the right builder with the right architect, with the right personalities, the process will be the most enjoyable thing you've ever done. And that's what I enjoy, to work
Mhm.
with the people, and they have an idea, and then once that starts to go together,
Mhm.
um, they say, "Oh, is that what it looks like?"
Mhm.
You know, it's the same words, just a different tone, and it's so much fun to get calls from clients that just, you know, we're halfway through the house, and they get calls. I get calls that, Don, we love what you've done. We had no idea
Mhm.
it was going to look that way. So it can be a lot of fun. It can be your worst nightmare as well. It all depends upon who your team members are.
Yeah, that's great. So let's just say someone's sitting here saying, you know, well, maybe this is for me. Right now, I don't like the real estate market, or I'm just creative and I have a specific type of home in mind. I have not seen it yet. I might be interested. So if that was the case, would a simple call to you be a next step that they could just at least chat with you, explore, kind of run some ideas and numbers by you and see if it's realistic or reasonable?
Yeah, that's something that we did. We just finished a house on Neptune in Encinitas. He wanted something unlike anything else on that street. And he came into the office. We spent probably 6 or 7 hours. He's got something on his house that doesn't look like anything on the street. So that's the fun part.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the time today talking over, you know, the specifics of what benefits an architect can bring, what some of the actual costs are. Obviously, they can vary quite a lot, but at least a general idea just to give us an understanding to wrap our head around, you know, how to make the process easier and then some of the surprises that people might come across. So it's been super valuable time. So thank you again. And I'll definitely, anybody who has questions, you know, please feel free to reach out and we'll get you connected in with Don Looney. You could also Google him, Don Looney Architect. He's in Carlsbad Village, actually, not too far from our office. So a super convenient location and really, really great guy. So thank you, Don. I really do appreciate it. And everyone else, as always, of course, if there's ever anything I could do to help in the real estate world, you know, please feel free to reach out, whether it's a connection to a great resource like Don, a question about a house, anything, I'd be happy to help. So, all right, you guys will have a great rest of your day and take care.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, bye.
I am so glad that you watched all the way to this point in the video because I'm happy to help raise your real estate IQ. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I wanted to take a moment to invite you to check out the description below for helpful resources and to download a guide that can include things like tips and checklists to make planning for your move even easier. It's honestly never too early to get started. If you like this video, please be sure to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so that you can get notified when we share new real estate videos each Thursday. You'll also want to check out the thumbnails that are about to pop up on the screen for other videos that we've custom made for you on this channel. And as always, this info is for people everywhere, but if you're looking to make a move to the San Diego area, I'd be happy to be a resource. You'll find my contact info in the description below. So have a great day, and I hope that you love where you live. See you guys in the next video.